Hello and welcome to Meet the Festival for You Can't Stop the Beat. My name's Stephanie Johns and I'm Education Associate here at the Stratford Festival. And I'm honored to be able to join Evangelia Kambites and Thom Allison this morning in discussing You Can't Stop the Beat, musical theater, and their careers. As always, during Meet the Festival events, we love to hear from you and answer the questions that you have for our wonderful performers. So please be sure to add your questions to the chat in YouTube, and I will relay them to our guests when I have time. But before we begin in earnest, I want to take a few moments to recognize the land that we're on. I'm currently in my home in Stratford on the original territory of the Anishinaabe, the Attawandaron, or Neutrals, and the Mississaugas. I'm grateful every day to be the caretakers of the land currently, and I am encouraging you at home to research the land that you're on and maybe consider the impact that you have on the land and the peoples who have come before you. So now, for the lovely introductions of our wonderful people here. So Evangelia Kambites is one of the incredible singers in You Can't Stop the Beat Cabaret and is joining us for her third season at the Stratford Festival. You may have seen her in Little Shop and Billy Elliot, the musical, previously at the festival. Elsewhere, she's played Gary Coleman in Avenue Q at the Arts Club and has performed previously in The Adventures of a Black Girl in Search of God at Centaur Theatre, BTW, and National Arts Center. She performed I Think I'm Fallen, the songs of Joni Mitchell at the Belfry Theatre, Lady in Orange in the Four Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough at Soul Pepper, and Fate in Hadestown at the Citadel. Other productions include The Secret Chord, a Leonard Cohen experience, and The 27 Club at Soul Pepper, and The Hockey Sweater, a musical at the National Arts Center. Evangelia's television and film work include Minority Report, Heroes Reborn, Incorporated, and Boys. She received her training at Queen's University and Randolph College. Evangelina also has received awards for her performances in Avenue Q and in Adventures of a Black Girl. You can find her debut album, which is amazing, Feel the Fall, available to stream everywhere. And now, on to Thom Allison. And he is the curator and director of You Can't Stop the Beat and has joined the festival for his 6th season this year. At Stratford, you may recognize him as the Kralahome in The King and I, the Duke of Suffolk in King Henry VIII, Cinderella's Prince / the Wolf in Into the Woods, and the associate director of Up Close and Musical. On Broadway, Thom was Bernadette's understudy in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. At Shaw Festival, he played Carl Magnus in A Little Night Music, Coalhouse Walker in Ragtime. At Cannes Stage, he played Darren Lemming in Take Me Out and Robin in Outrageous. Thom has also graced the stages all across Canada in the Vancouver Playhouse, the National Arts Centre, Citadel Theatre, Theatre Calgary, Manitoba Theatre Centre, and the Grand Theatre. His film and television work include Pre in Killjoys, Roger and Frankie Drake Mysteries, and a judge on CBC's Over the Rainbow. He directed Seussical and Mary Poppins, two of my favorites. I was one of the jungle creatures once. Which was nice. When I was in university. And he has also received a Canadian Screen Award for Best Supporting Actor in a Drama for his work on Killjoys. So please join me, everybody on YouTube from your homes, in welcoming our lovely artists today. So after all of those things, you two have done a lot. I'm
exhausted already.
Yeah, same. But can you share with us how it feels to be performing again after this prolonged hiatus? And also for you, Thom, how it's feeling for you to see your vision come to life for this cabaret after this prolonged hiatus.
Goodness. Evangelia, go.
Okay. Well, it's definitely been a very long time since we've all been on stage performing. So it feels wonderful, firstly. There is nothing like a live audience. And while the numbers may be small in the audience, the members are so present and thirsty for live performance. So, every crowd is with us and dropped in and giving us all of their love and energy. So it's very special. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't a little bit rusty coming back after 18 months of not performing live. I think the last time I did that was December of 2019. So with Thom, actually, we were doing an Alan Menken concert tour with Angel Walk. So Yeah, so it's been a good exercise in retraining those muscles to have the stamina to sing this marathon of a show that Thom has created for us, which he will speak to in a moment. But it's truly, I feel very, very grateful and very blessed that I have the opportunity to perform at all right now because it's still such a precarious situation and things are in such flux that we never know what's going to happen next. So I feel very, very lucky to be back.
So,
Indeed. Yeah. Well, and for me, it's wild to come back on this side of it, but not as a performer, as
mhm.
a creator and director. And it was so fun putting the show together over the course of, I guess, it's about 6 months, and then living with it that way. Then suddenly we're in rehearsal, and it was so wild to be in a real rehearsal room with actors again, and live sounds and musicians, and it was thrilling to get the cast, my dream cast that I wanted. I knew early that I had the people that I wanted, so I was able to write for them. So that was really fun to be able to write, knowing or imagining how they would do it in my head. And then the real thrill was being in the room, and certainly then in performance, where they all took it and were even more fantastic than I imagined. So I felt like I had the gift of, even if what I wrote was mediocre, what they did with it was gold. So it turned out great in the end, no matter what. But it was wonderful to watch it all live and breathe, and then see a live audience come and be so happy to be there. The audiences are so thrilled to be at anything live, and then it's music, and then it's musicals. So you have these wonderful stories. I chose some of the best songs in the musical theater canon for the show on purpose, to illustrate, different ways that that musicals enter our souls and our systems. And so having this cast sort of perform it for these very eager and joyous people has been a real thrill.
I was going to say, I had the privilege of seeing it a couple days ago, and I was there for the filming, which was also kind of neat to get to watch that and the performers on stage. But I was so glad that I was wearing my mask because I just was mouthing every word to everyone. Because musical theater is just in me, and the fact that we are able to do these things together again is just so. It's so heart fulfilling, I would say, and it's like, anyway, I could have been dancing the whole time, but I stayed in my follow instructions. So back to Thom. What inspired you to curate this specific cabaret, You Can't Stop the Beat, and why musical theater?
Interesting question. So actually, the topic was sort of given to me with the request. It was something about musical theater. The idea of why do we love it, why do we need it, was sort of put to me as a blanket statement. Then it was mine to open up as I saw fit, which was great. And I think part of why it was given to me is I've made a lot of my career in musical theater. And I've been fascinated by the crafting of it and what it is and how it's put together, and how and the power that music, ideas, and vision come together, and how it lifts people and how it takes them on a ride, and how, musicals, people will come and see a different production of a play, several times over a lifetime, but people will come and see the same production of a musical over and over and over again. And my big exploration was, why do we do that? I mean, just that idea alone, why do we do that? Why do we keep coming back? And then they'll see it if it's put up anywhere. They'll go and see it 2 and 3 times again if it's a different production. But how you can go to a musical over and over again, and it fills you with something that draws you back. And I think the music touches us so much. It goes so deep inside us. It connects to great moments in our lives, either the happy moments, or it helps soothe us in dark moments. Many stories of people who have had connections to people who passed on, who they'd see shows together, or it was their favorite show, or somehow connects that it connects to memory, it connects to celebration, it connects to memorializing people. It has this weight that lifts people, no matter what it is. Even if it's a sadder memory, there's still something that's glowing and warm that surrounds it, that I think keeps people coming back for more. Those songs, those melodies that sort of explain our lives, or let us hear about the hard parts of life and help us to understand it and somehow be more okay inside it. It's extraordinary. It's very rare to find something that does the same thing that musicals can do for people.
And in a 3-minute song, right?
Something, just right. That. Sometimes just a song alone, like, and you go, and it stays with you forever. ever. People's favorite songs connect. Everyone has everyone's favorite musical theater song connects emotionally, deeply to something from their past or their present or a person. It's always a very deep connection.
Absolutely. When you said people go back to the same production over and over, I did this because in 2018, I went and saw the Rocky Horror Show at the festival 30 times, like not two, 30.
Wow.
And it was a problem.
Is it? I mean, why? Other than your pocketbook, what's the problem?
I mean, it was fine. But I dressed up as a different character every time. Then I ran out of characters and dressed up as a stage manager. So it's something that certainly, it hits something deep inside you. And when you find it, it's like, I didn't want to let it go. So it just kept happening. And I wasn't even the one who saw it the most. There was a woman in town who saw it 42 times. We really liked that show, clearly.
Amazing.
Yeah. So going off of what you were just saying, Thom, so what, for both of you actually, what is that song for you? What is that musical theater song for you that just like changed something or meant or still means something, even though you heard it 20 years ago? What's that song for you, if you can think of one or two?
The first one that came to my mind, and it's not from 20 years ago, but it's Quiet Uptown from Hamilton. The first time I heard that song, I sort of I think I was walking down the street in Toronto and I just sort of stopped dead in my tracks and I was just overcome with the sadness of this moment. So that one sticks out in my mind. And maybe the finale in The Color Purple. That culmination of everybody and Celie singing together. I think that also is something that gets me every time. But it's hard. There are so many amazing songs and musicals, and it's like, oh my gosh, how do you pick? I have so many favorites, but exactly. Thom, do you have any?
I mean, again, so many, but one which is a bit bizarre, but to me, it epitomizes why musicals, when they're so good, can be so good. It's actually Liaisons from A Little Night Music. And it's an sort of unexpected choice, but I saw a production years and years ago when I was in my teens on TV, and I videotaped it and I watched it, the whole show over and over again of A Little Night Music at Lincoln Center with Sally Ann Howes and George Lee Andrews, who was the original Frid in the original production, who is now playing Frederick. But it was Liaisons sung by Regina Resnick, opera singer and wonderful actress, who, it's this older courtesan sitting, wheeled out in her wheelchair in a spotlight. And she sings about her memories as a courtesan and how the world has changed and how it's so simpler, much simpler years ago, and that you didn't get emotion into it, singing about how you get things that you need for a good life, but when it becomes about love, it gets messy, and how she tried to teach her daughter to be to live her life well, get things that you need. Don't let love make it muddy. But what that song inside that Sondheim tells us about relationships and people and how we're complicated inside and our needs, and then the actability of it, it's just the most extraordinary thing. And then many years later, I got to see Angela Lansbury do the revival on Broadway, and I was sitting in fifth row right in front of her, and to have her come out and lay this song out for the ages, every nuance of thought and need, and you got to see her age and her memory was going, all this gets packed into one 3-minute song, and you just kind of go, I love what we do for a living. I love that we can encompass a whole world of someone's identity and human complication in one 3-minute song, is sitting in a chair in a spotlight. That to me is what musicals can do, that kind of power.
Thom, you got to see her glamour and her excess.
I did. Oh, it was funny too. I got to see both productions. I got to see actually that, and then the replacements. I saw Bernadette Peters and Elaine Stritch do it.
Oh wow!
And
oh no wonder they're all in the show.
Oh, it was all it was all big thing. But watching Elaine, her memory was a problem notoriously, and watching that 3-minute number, I think I timed it because I knew at the beginning I thought we're in trouble, and I thought, how long is this going to be? And I think it's supposed to be 3 minutes ish, and it took I think 7 minutes. And watching the conductor have to, because she had pieces of it and then she'd be blanking, but watching this older actress, but with such history, watching her act through the memory, trying to find the words, but using it as character. But I could see where I was sitting. I'll try to make this short. But I could see where I was sitting in the conductor. It was in a sort of above in a little window connecting the orchestra. So I could see her and him. And I watched him watching her, and she'd be at the villa of the king of the Belgians. We would visit through a false chiffonier. And then he's like, and the orchestra's doing dun, 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 dun. I just watch and keep up with her. It was extraordinary to watch him connect to her connect to the text, and try and pull it together. But yet it was mesmerizing the entire time. The audience almost gave her a standing ovation. One, because she got through it. Two, because it was genius. It was actually oddly, it's a song where she's having memory problems, and you gotta go, you were on a ride, we're on it with you. Go, lady.
Yeah.
It was great.
I love it.
It was gold.
I love it.
And the whole audience wants her to succeed. So
they were so willing her to find it, and she'd be acting and thinking, and then this happened, and then there's this part, and you're like, yes, Elaine, go, we got you. It was hilarious.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And we have a question from Louise A. Can you speak to the format of the cabaret? Do cast read the lyrics and the pieces, or is it from memory?
Our specific cabaret is the nature of it, because it's a shorter rehearsal period, is actually it's all on book. So they have the book in front of them. But of course, we've been working through it, and they're lifting it and bringing it to life. So it's I wouldn't call it read, but it's not fully memorized either. It's alive. And cabaret itself, as an art form, it's often a memorized thing, and it's a bigger thing. But for this, it's a cabaret concert. So it's more of that kind of world. So yeah, it's on book, but you don't. Especially with these performers, but all of them, you don't ever feel like you're not getting the full show.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, it gets better and better every show that we're doing. We actually joke backstage about what would happen if we just went on without our books? Do you think how far would we get before it all just burst into flames? But it's to give you perspective. I think we only had 7 full days of rehearsal to learn 90 minutes of music, 28 songs, and a full script. So, and God bless you, Thom, has chosen hard music. They aren't easy ensemble pieces. They aren't easy solo pieces. And so it has been, rehearsal, and rehearsal itself was really difficult because of the COVID protocols. So we were thankfully we got to be indoors, but we were indoors separated by plexiglass between each performer, plexiglass in front of Laura Burton, our musical director. We all had these giant singers masks on that sort of that poke out this way. And so we couldn't hear anybody beside us. We're trying to learn harmonies and we can't hear anybody. We can barely, I was right beside Laura, so I at least got a bit more of the piano. But our first time hearing each other was the day before we opened, when we did our sitz probe and our tech dress. That was the first time we got to actually hear where our harmonies fit in with each other, hoping that muscle memory was there and correct. And so we're definitely taking it off the page, like Thom said. But we've also now built in, Gabrielle Jones, who is in our show, mentioned yesterday that, we could probably go out and do it without our books, but we've also built into our track the muscle memory of turning pages at certain points. And so if you take that away, I think that would probably just derail us. It's like blocking. It's like having, where to step on a stage, and then all of a sudden they take away your blocking, and it's you associate a line with a movement. So if you remove that, or if you try to, it could be a bit of a disaster. So we're definitely less on book than we were, I would even say, after the first show for sure. But we're not getting rid of those anytime soon, I don't think.
No.
it's working the way it is. Let's keep it the way it is.
Totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed, because I was wondering, is it going to be more of just like concert with the book there, or is there going to be some choreography worked in? And obviously there is, and it's just so fun to like see those moments, like with the arms. I'm not going to do it. I want to dance. But it was just so beautiful to start like my returning to theater in the audience with just a little bit of choreography. We're just slowly easing into it together, which is nice. All right, this is going to be separate from the Cabaret. What has been your all-time favorite role to play in your entire career? And what did that character or part mean to you?
Thom, you go first.
Oh God. I mean, there've been a couple, but certainly one of them would have been Coalhouse Walker in Ragtime. I actually was in the third, not as Coalhouse, I was way younger then, but I was in the third workshop of the original production in Toronto, and it was like still coming up the first time. So I knew it was an extraordinary piece, and I've always loved it. But when I got the chance to play Coalhouse, it's the piece itself is so extraordinary, and what it has to say about racism and coming together and worlds colliding, and how we can be a greater version of what we can be with each other, and the consequences of when it doesn't work. To sort of be part of that and see the audience every night really be there for the story and feel it, and you feel people they're crying and they're weeping, and at the end of the show their response was so guttural, so visceral. It sort of made me want to just weep a little bit every night. It was so beautiful to see people moved by theater and by musicals, and it to me was the absolute power of what musicals actually can do, that, and how music can be used so perfectly to elevate the entire thing.
That's a really tough act for me to follow there, Thom. Thanks for that. This isn't a musical, it's a play, but it's a choreo poem. It's the production of for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough that I did at Soul Pepper. I got to play Lady in Orange, so each of the characters in the show are named after a color in the rainbow, and this version has had a lot of music, a lot of movement and dance and singing. And so while it was a play, it was certainly a play with music, that that underscoring, and that it was basically a soundscape that got created by all of the actors on stage. So we would create the soundtrack underneath the dialogue. So it was really an immersive experience, and playing, getting to do this show about Black women and the struggles that Black women face, the fights that we fight, the things that we have to overcome, the assumptions and expectations put on us by society, and how silently we can struggle with those things. And the title in and of itself, Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, the whole point of the show is moving towards the end of our own rainbows and surviving. And it's really a collective piece about the fortitude and power of sisterhood, specifically the sisterhood of Black women. That show was very, very special to me for so many reasons. It was a huge challenge for me as an actor. I was also the dance captain, and I sort of was the person who started all the music, like for every song, it was a lot. And I got to work with some of the best Black actors I have ever met. So that was, I have found myself often being the youngest in spaces, and getting to work with amazing veterans who have been doing this for a long time and have so much to teach, and I have so much to learn. So it's always I'm always really grateful for those experiences, and those are typically my favorite experiences. So that show will forever have a very special place in my heart. Janet Sears knows how to create community and knows how to direct a stunning piece of theater every time. I've worked with her twice now, and I feel so beyond blessed that I've had that chance, because she's everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Two very cool and very, I think, different experiences. It's lovely. Let's do an unpopular opinion.
Oh no.
What musical is overdone to you?
Mamma Mia.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, what do you think? What musical is overdone?
It's overdone.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wouldn't disagree with that. There was a period when I remember this more so than now, when Joseph, my God, everyone and their dog was doing it over and over and over and over and over again. No, that's a bad piece, but it's like, is there nothing else in the world to do? But suddenly Mamma Mia now has become the new thing. I mean, I get it, because it's fun, and in times when money's tight, you should have grabbed the one that's going to be the moneymaker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everyone kind of went that show, and you go, yeah, but you're all just doing that show. Like, there are other shows that could make money. I'm always of the belief, do a show really well, get known for doing a show really well. People will come and see anything.
Mm-hmm.
If they know it's gonna be good. If it's gonna be iffy and you're doing stuff, well then sure, people go, yeah.
Yeah. I also think that it depends on, like, there are waves of it within Canadian musical theater where like, this one, the rights have just come out for this.
Yes.
So like every theater is like, oh, let's get it and let's do it. I feel like that sort of happened with Mamma Mia when the rights first became available, and like every regional theater did it, and then it's just sort of become
the show.
Yeah. That happens. I get it. ABBA's awesome and it's super fun.
Totally. It's a good time.
But yeah, I said that I am never surprised when I see it in a season anymore. I'm like, yeah.
Right.
Of course we're doing that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can become very much musicals become the go-to scapegoat for just making money, and so we don't always go. There are more artistic shows that can be crowd-pleasing and entertaining and fun that we could do, but I think people get afraid. So that musical will make money, so get the musical that makes money, and you go, okay, sure. But my God, what a loss of so much that people could be exposed to and go, oh my God, that was amazing. I didn't know that show was out there. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of those actually.
Yep. Exactly.
It's not being bold. It's just make a choice to do something.
Let's take a chance on a musical rather than doing the musical in order to take a chance on a straight play kind of.
Well, sort of, yeah. You can have both in a musical. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we have another question from Louise A. Excellent. Can you speak to the challenges of performing outdoors and with weather, noise, or any other distraction?
Evangelia, go.
I sure can. So one of the biggest challenges currently, and will be for the whole rest of the run, the tent is beautiful, but acts as a wind tunnel, and so. God bless our stage manager, Annie Murphy. Every day before, when we get our half-hour call on the PA, she tells us what the weather is. She tells us what direction the wind is coming from, whether or not she thinks it's going to be windy in the tent. Like, she's on it. And so we have these clips on our music stands, because the wind will come through the tent and like it will just like your sheets are just like going and going and going. And Thom, was it opening that? It was really, really windy and I had to hold my sheet music. Was that during supper time?
Yes, it was.
So it was like, oh yeah, that's right. So it was opening show, and it was the windiest show we'd ever had. And I didn't have a clip on my stand that day because I hadn't really needed one up to that point. And Alana Hibbert is performing this stunning piece called Supper Time, which is quite intimate. And the wind just grabbed my pages and they were like hitting my mic stand, and so I just like gently like reached forward and like put my hand on the music, and I was just like, I'm just gonna stay here the whole time.
It was very professional. I was very impressed.
It was
like, nice
so
work.
Distracting.
Nice.
So the wind is a really literally. The wind is a really big thing to deal with. It can get quite cold in the tent if it's a colder day. So we have sweaters and things, but we can get quite chilly. And last night, there were military jets flying over the tent. And so we got to the end of one of our medleys, the Rodgers and Hammerstein section. And, we're singing the big note at the end. And I hear this noise and I was like, I sort of like glanced at the audience. I was like, are they like going like, Like, I thought they were like, I was like, are they like really cheering? And so we stopped and we just sort of like all looked up and like we could just hear these jets flying over the tent. And I could see our stage manager like trying to see what was going on. And it lasted like at least another song and a bit. Like it was very bizarre. And then we were talking about war and stuff, and these jets are flying over. We were just like, oh my goodness. So there's definitely elements outdoors that we have no control over. People typically are very respectful of the tent when they're walking by. They're more curious than anything. But you'll hear the odd child cry or scream or playing in the park, that's just next door. But yeah, the wind and the uncontrollable noise is definitely part of it. But
lawnmowers, leaf blowers,
lawnmowers, sprinkler systems, the
Yep.
whole thing. Yeah.
Oh man, it's just so many things to consider.
So many things.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So kind of in the same vein, what is or how did you find the difference between performing just for the audience in the tent versus performing for the audience and the film crew that filmed the Cabaret this week?
Yeah, it was that was a tricky shift because I think a lot of what we have, like I was talking earlier about muscle memory and setting our blocking and stuff, like we all sort of have these things in our songs where we will look at a certain part of the audience or hit a pose or know that like on this one I'm looking, stage right or I'm looking straight out. So with the film crew, in the first, because we filmed both shows, the 11 a.m. we still had a few audience members in the center section, so we could still sort of connect there. But in the second show, we didn't have anybody in the center, and so it was just cameras. And it's tricky. It's tricky to stay super dropped in, super focused, when you can like see not just the cameras that are on their stands and are taking still shots of you, but the ones that are on the dollies, the ones that are on the cranes that are moving up and down, or the camera crew that are going from camera to camera, and then using the cameras. Like, so Thom can probably comment on this from an outside because he was there watching. I think we handled it pretty well, but it definitely puts us on, maybe not on edge, but a heightened sense of awareness. I think the comfort that we are used to with performing goes away a little bit because we know that we have to be a little bit more prepared for change.
Right.
I think in those instances. Yeah.
Yeah. It lays it bare a little bit. It's a different awareness of you don't have the audience to react to. A lot of the show is very much play to the, you're talking with Cabaret in particular, you're really talking to the audience. You want it to feel very live. And so there's this whole swath in the middle that there's no audience at all. So you're already sort of have an imaginative world in the songs, but now you're imagining an audience you're singing to and what they're reacting to. You can't see them, and the audience is so far over the rest of the audience that you don't want to play the whole thing to the side. So it's tricky. It's very technical, actually, on top of being available and easy and vulnerable. Then suddenly you got this technical thing, trying not to think of this is it, captured forever in one take, which is also horrifying.
That's good.
Like you're like So it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
They were great.
Go. Okay, well, that's good. I mean, I enjoyed it, and that's the only one I've seen of you guys, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
They did very well.
Thank you.
Like, really
I'm still so happy about it. I'm very happy. I was dancing a lot. Oh, I remember now. Evangelia, what is the song that is most challenging in this Cabaret for you personally? And then Thom, are there any songs that you wanted to include that you weren't able to include? So whoever wants to go.
Go ahead.
The most, the most challenging technically would be The Wizard and I, just because it's a behemoth of a sing. But it's settled into a really nice place for me vocally that I have like figured out how to contend with all of the parts that I was struggling with. So, but that was probably it's the one that requires the biggest push for me. 2 show days, I'm like, okay, I've got to get that, make sure that stamina is there to do that. I think from an emotional or like a character connecting point of view, um, You Will Be Found uh, has been the one I think as a cast collectively we have struggled the most to drop into and find an authentic place with, and it's definitely gotten, we're definitely in a better place with it now. But I think with such a short rehearsal period, it was just hard to get to spend all the time on it. So for me, I'm still Thom. I'm off book on that one now. So
Wow, nice. Oh, you were up, more or less off book when I saw it last time.
yeah, but yesterday I didn't look at the lyrics once, so there you go. And so that song feels better and better every time. But I it's such an important number in the show. Last night we had a woman in the audience who was very emotional during that number. She was like crying quite a bit, and I kept trying to catch her eye because we want to connect, right? And she would look at me for a second and then look away. And so at the end of the number, I looked right at her and she looked at me and I gave her a smile and she just mouthed the words, "Thank you." And she was like weeping and I was like, and that is why we do it. I was like,
Yes.
that, that moment. And it's a testament to Thom's vision to have put that song in the show in the way that he did, because uh, it is doing what he wants it to do, what we want it to do as a cast. It is connecting with people in a way that I think we all really need after this last year and a half. So technically, The Wizard and I is really hard, and emotionally, You Will Be Found is still, I think, finding its feet for me personally.
Wow. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thank you.
It's good to hear. Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
That's landing where we wanted it to land, and
yeah, it is. Yeah.
that took the moment that it needed. That's great. That's awesome.
Mhm.
In terms of the show, it's funny. The show is very modular, so there's sort of section. There's a title and a section, and then there's a song or a medley or a couple of songs that describe that the title or the theme of that section. So one of the sections that I was, it was gonna be fun, but I realized time wise there was just no time for it to happen. Like if there's an expanded version, it would be in. But and you guys don't even know this, Evangelia.
No.
I didn't tell you guys either, because the show knows like, the perfect length, and
Yeah.
what it is exactly right. But after the Sondheim medley, and before the
You Will Be Found.
You Will Be Found, there
Uh-huh.
was actually going to be a section. It was a sing off. It was a battle of the jukebox musicals, and it
Stop.
was going to be 3 or 4 songs as little snippets from Jersey Boys and Mamma Mia, and then in the end it would be trumped by Beautiful. So there's gonna be a
Oh
whole
my
section of about like
God.
another 7 or 8 songs that was gonna happen. It would be a whole Carole King section that would trump the other two fighting it off, and then they're like, "No, we win," and then it would be like a little trio of Carole King songs that would have been snuck in there. But I realized the feel is like we've done it. It's all been done. It's an extra
Hmm.
bing, but we didn't need it without making it a 2-act show and adding other things to change it around. It
Right.
just the show was like, you know what? This is just in a way. We're starting something else when we're actually wrapping it up. So it came out, but I had this whole section of that, which would have been fun. Just this
That's
sing off back and forth.
awesome.
Yeah. Your next cabaret. It's fine. Let's just
I'll use it later. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine.
it's good. It's a great idea. I like it. What is, or when you look back at your career so far, what is a moment, either good or bad, that always makes you think, wow, I can't believe I did that? So again, good or bad. So
Hmm.
functions, I don't know,
Oh, wow.
or anything else.
Good or bad? I can't
So
believe I
many
did
bad
that.
things. God.
I can say that pretty early in my career, I think maybe 3 years in or so, I made a decision after having done a few uh stereotypically black cast, like the shows weren't black focused, but the roles that I was being cast in were like maybe not the nicest stereotypes of black people. I made a decision that I was no longer going to do that.
Awesome.
And so that was a big shift because it limited a lot of what I could go out for or would go out for, because I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And so I wouldn't say that it was a negative experience doing those other shows, earlier on in my career. but it just actually, maybe it's a positive thing because it just taught me what I didn't want to do anymore. And again, I owe this to Janet Sears because it was working on her show, The Adventures of a Black Girl in Search of God, that that show changed my entire trajectory of my life. And I was like, and I think every person who worked on that show would say the same thing. We all were just like, no, we're no longer going to do that kind of stuff. And it was working with Janet and having that that community and her wisdom and guidance and getting to speak her words that just made it clear that that was no longer a thing. So maybe it's a good thing. Maybe that's a positive outcome of an otherwise potentially negative part of our industry is those stereotypical roles for any marginalized group, I would say.
And hopefully out of that, not only are people kind of in your orbit not taking those roles, not saying no to those, but hopefully younger, more vulnerable performers are coming up and going, yeah, I have the strength to say no too. So I think it's a great thing. Even if it wasn't like, there's more limited roles at that point in the situation.
But I think that's okay because I also am of the mind that like what is meant for you will come.
Yeah.
And you will do the work that you are intended to do.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thom, what about you?
It's funny. Mine was three things that connected, but that had a soul nucleus that didn't necessarily interest me, but to get the three things, the nucleus had to happen, and I didn't realize that. I went to Broadway to do Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which was a wild ride, and I didn't actually have a goal to be on Broadway, but I had these three sort of dreams that I wanted to be part of, that wouldn't actually ever happen unless you went to Broadway, and it didn't occur to me in that way. But doing the show got me to fulfill those three things, and those three things were: one, to be on a Broadway cast recording. You have to be on Broadway to do that, but I thought it's so cool because I was the one listening to recordings going, these are so amazing, these actors are so amazing. So to be on a cast recording, so I'm on the cast recording of Broadway as Priscilla, to perform at the Tony Awards. We did on the Tony Awards that year. We performed at the Tony Awards, and we got to perform with Martha Wash of the Weather Girls do It's Raining Men, and which was wild. And the third thing was, it's so stupid, but I wanted to be in Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. A big thing. I was like, the world watches this. And then we did a number on Macy's. I was like, yes, the trio. I did the trio. It's like, but you have to get to Broadway to do that. Yeah, sure. But that was not my thing. It wasn't to be on. I had new people who are on Broadway. They're like, it's just another gig. It's not. You walk in the door, either you love or hate the show. That's your experience. You walk out of there, you're in Times Square, and like, okay, that's not the same. So that was amazing. But those three things I were always dreams of mine. It was like that was some kind of big thing, and I got to all three of them that year, and it was very exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, cool. To have all of those things come together, and it's not stupid. Like the Macy's Day Parade is like one of the biggest things ever. It's
such a random you need to I don't need to do that, but it was such a cool
but you want
thing.
to.
Yeah,
it was
but
such a great thing not? To like okay, but it's fun. Like it's all those little things that are associated with the Broadway thing and being on Broadway, and then you get to do other kind of fun bits, and it was cool. I got to meet Joan Rivers. I got to meet Andy. What's his name? Andy Cohen, Liz Smith, the gossip columnist, like all these things that happened because of that. So cookie little bits.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What is your favorite piece to watch, whether it be a play, a musical, anything? And what is your favorite to actually get to perform in? Because I know those can be very different.
Oh goodness.
Wow.
Well, so I was in the Canadian premiere of Hadestown in 2017 in Edmonton. That was probably the most fun I've ever had doing a musical. That show is so special. Anais Mitchell has written like the best harmonies, and as one of the fates, you get to sing in these three parts. I was a fate with Joelle Blackman, who was on Broadway or returning to Broadway imminently as they return, and Kira Galoyan as the Fates. And so getting to sing with those two powerhouses was a treat and a dream. And the music is so smart and so stunning. So I really, really loved performing in that. And then I got to see it in New York, and see the full original cast was on, which is very exciting. Right before pandemic, it was New Year's Day 2020, and I got to
Right.
see it. And it like I've done the show, and yes, it has changed since I did it, but like I still like wept through it. It's based on the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Um, Orpheus isn't supposed to turn around. Like he has to like walk out of Hades town. Like he has to leave without turning around, trusting that she's there. And like I know he's gonna turn around. And I still like when he turned around the show, I was like, oh, no. Like,
Totally.
like I've done
No.
it. Yeah. And it was just like it was so stunning and so beautiful. So I think Hades Town might be it for me for both of those in terms of like what I love performing in and what I loved to watch. I could watch that show 1,000 times over and never get tired of it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's funny. I'd have to agree. I saw Hades Town on Broadway, and it's one of the best, like script, book, score, cast, design,
Direction.
It's one of the most thoroughly realized pieces I think I've ever seen in the theater. I was so blown away. It was thrilling to watch. Like, I loved it. I don't think anything's come close to that. And I've seen some great stuff for sure. But I don't know if anything's come close to that. The magnitude and scope of how right on point the whole show was.
And they did some big changes from Edmonton and from London before they went to Broadway. And Rachel Hawk, the designer, I remember when we were in Edmonton, she said, I'm gonna add a third turntable because there's turntables on the floor. And I was like, and we had two when we did it. And she's like, I'm gonna add a third. And I was like, you can't, like, no, that's crazy. And she did. And it's perfect. And some of the changes were so like literally took my breath away seeing some of those reveals and set changes that they, that you can do on Broadway.
Yeah.
That you can't do at other places. So, yeah, really special. I'm so glad you saw it, Tom. I didn't know that
Oh
you
my
saw it.
God! Yeah, I wanted to see because I wanted to see Joelle, but I was fascinated by the show. I was supposed to audition originally for Mercury. Mercury? No.
Hermes.
Sorry, I've got the wrong Greek Roman. For
Yeah.
Hermes. And I was like, I don't feel it right now. And I go like, okay, well, Andre de Shields, the legendary Andre de Shields. I'm like, okay, we're good, Mr. Tony Award winning genius. Extraordinary. So it was just all so great. Yeah, it was great. The one I performing in, it's funny because Colehouse was an amazing role to play. But doing the MC in Cabaret at Theatre Calgary was one of the most fun things I've ever been part of. It's because that show is amazing and dark and wild and twisted. But the MC in that company was just so, it hit all my hits for me that make it fun. I like complicated. I like cool story. I like weird. Like the weirder the better. I'm actually a character actor at heart. And the designer, Judith Bowden, I'd just worked with her on something the year before where we had met, and she knows, like, I'm a costume designers love me because I can wear anything, any wig, any thing. I will feature linings of things. Like, what do you want seen? I'll find a way to show it, And she said when she found out it was me playing the part, she actually added 4 more costumes because she knew. And so I think I had 17 costumes in the show.
Oh my God.
I just, like, every time I came back out, I kept changing. I had, like, one point I had 6 costumes in one scene.
Oh my God.
I'd come out to announce, I'd be like, I was dressed as a baby. I was dressed in a negligee. I was dressed in a suit. I'm like, what do you got? Throw it at me. She's I knew if it was you, you do it. I kept designing more things. I was like, great. So it just was all the things. I had a wig and I had my own hair and it was fantastic. It was great.
Oh, that's so much fun.
Yeah.
I'm not a performer, but in my performing days, I was number 2 in Les Mis, and that was just a dream.
I mean, number 2 is one of the best tracks.
Right? I had 2 lines. It was a great time.
God.
Loved it.
Star Trek.
Yeah, it changed everything. And also seeing Jerusalem at Curtis in Toronto, like It was incredible. And I was sitting like front row and got splashed with water at one point. And it was just like everything about the experience of that show was just so intense. And then the actors obviously were just incredible.
Yeah. In Toronto or on Broadway?
Yeah, in Toronto.
Yeah, I saw the one on Broadway.
Oh, really?
Twice, actually. I was so astonishing when, okay, I have got to see this again. I can't believe these performances.
Absolutely. It was incredible. Like, oh, I couldn't believe it. We have Louise A again. You are
Louise, we love you. Come on.
Yes, you're the perfect person.
Yes.
What is it like being able to see the audience so clearly in the tent versus a traditional dark theater setting?
It's different. There's definitely, I think, more of a vulnerability as performers. There's something I think we get used to hiding in our indoor theaters. You know, you can't really see the house. Maybe the people in the first couple of rows, but there's no hiding. So I think about the end of the show when we hit the button and then like the lights go down. But we're still, just like in our pose and like fully, and it's like, well, when do we and we're just trying to feel when the other person is going to put their arms down. So like, it just feels organic. But also I think it's a big shift for the audience because the audience also gets to hide in the dark of the theater. Whereas now it's like, I'm going to look right at you and sing this song. And it becomes a choice for the audience whether or not they're going to stay with us as performers or if they're going to look away. And I think we're pretty good on stage about knowing when somebody is interested in doing that. And we never want to make people uncomfortable. So if they're not interested, then we'll go to somebody else and we'll try with another person. But it's also like, Mark is in the show, Mark Ua, he's so good at the improv and the banter. And so, if somebody in the audience reacts to something he says, he will find them and he will have like a little moment with that person. And you can't really, and he can pick them out, but you can't really do that in a traditional theater setting. So, so it allows for a little bit more interaction and definitely more play. And I think you can let the audience feel like they are maybe more involved in your performance than they would in an indoor traditional theater setting with the darkness in the house and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. Tom, what do you think?
Well, it's also the nature of Cabaret is so intimate and personal. It's actually about the connection with the audience. They're not a fourth wall. They're not just watching the show. So even if it's a musical in a daytime setting or in an open air setting, it's still, you're doing your show. You're not looking at the audience as people that you're seeing, but we're looking in their eyes. And it's all about actually, we know you're here. And if you react, we're going to react to you reacting. Like, it's actually a live relationship that's happening with the audience, which is what makes Cabaret so interesting and kind of dangerous emotionally, because you can't hide. You've got to actually be vulnerable and available, yet still be on top of everything.
Yeah.
Different skill set.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's so pretty. Dorothy is wondering, does the weather outdoors have an effect on your voice?
Ooh.
Yes. It has been like super dry the last little bit. So, and if it's windy and it's dry, then we're just like get dry mouth and we're trying to drink water as often as we can throughout the show. If it's really cold, then your whole body gets really cold and then your muscles contract. And so your voice contracts. And so the cold days are really, really hard. Mark loves them because he's in a full suit. So he's like, this is great. And he's like so comfortable. Meanwhile, all the women in the show are like, just like freezing. So the cold can really impact just our entire, our body is our instrument. So it's like if you put a cello in, George Meanwell, who plays cello in the show, like if it's 30 degrees outside, that's a lot harder on his instrument than if it's 20 degrees. Whereas for us, I'm like, give me the 30. I love the 30. Right. But the 20 or less, I'm like, it's a little too cold. So it definitely, I think, affects our instruments. And so we do our best to stay as hydrated as possible before we get on stage. And then I think we all probably drink our whole water bottles throughout the show, which is also a game of finding moments where it is appropriate to take a sip of water during the show where you're not distracting and where that feels like an okay thing to do in that moment. So yeah, weather is wild. It's a game changer.
No. Gab put it really well. We were talking. She said it's funny when it's humid and hot. It's like lovely because you get your voice is all kind of great, but you're sort of it's sweaty and a bit weird and can be windy. And if it's cooler, like it can be a little more comfortable or too cold. But then if it's dry, then the voice is drying out. So this is kind of weird. You can't, we don't win everything when the body's comfortable and the voice is great. It's like the opposite. When it's warm and humid, the throat's great, but the body's a little sweaty and weird. Yeah.
You can't win, but that's okay.
Can't win.
No. Wonderful job anyway. Another unpopular opinion. What is your least favorite musical theater song that everyone else loves? And I'll go first so that you don't feel like I hate Hopelessly Devoted to You. Like so much. And I think it's because of the film, obviously. It's just like, let's put this paper in the little kiddie pool. So much. I can't love it.
Wow.
So that's mine. So what about you?
Thom, do you have one?
Can't think of a song. There's a show.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm gonna make so many enemies on this one. Well, there's two actually, but one in particular, Hair.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Like,
I'm with you.
It's not a show. It's a concert.
Yeah.
Sure, but like the message of it, make love not war. Don't make love either because there's STDs out there. Like that's not the answer either. Like let's just not make war and get over it. But that one I can't. There's another one. If I say it, I'll get a hate mail. I'm pretty sure. But anyways, that one for sure.
Perfect.
I fully agree with you about Hair. I did Hair many years ago, and I just I was like, you don't connect with a show when you can't remember any lyrics to any of the songs after you're like I literally could not sing you a full song from Hair, and I think I did that show for 6 weeks. Like it just no. But for me, a song that I just always am sort of cringy when I hear is Seasons of Love from Rent. And I think that's Thom, are you okay?
Sorry, my sound kind of went funny. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I thought you were upset by her choice.
I know. I was like, I'm so sorry, Thom. I didn't mean to say the wrong thing. And it's a funny love-hate thing because I'm always like, oh, why are we singing the song again? And then I'm like, measure in love, and then I'm singing it all of a sudden. I'm like, damn it.
It got me again.
Yeah. So I'm always like, oh, and then I just join in. So, but I think that's probably one that I'm always like, oh, because people are just so hype over it.
Yeah.
And I kind of get it, but also don't. Anyway, I don't know.
I absolutely agree. I love it. Sing every word and know every word, but also it is a lot.
Yeah.
Many times. So I think we're almost at the end, but I do want to ask this question. Dreamcast, your favorite show. You can just do the leads, but what's your favorite show and who would you really want to put in that show? And you can include yourself in the show as well.
Oh my God,
that's
I know the big question at the end.
It's too big.
Or Dreamcast, the two big leads in your favorite show.
I don't know what show it would be, but Audra McDonald in anything.
Perfect.
And that's all I can think of currently. Yeah, Audra in anything would be amazing.
Audra in anything.
In anything.
That's
yeah.
She could basically play anything. So what do you
She
need?
could, yeah.
Audra will do it and be great. Oh my God, that's so.
It's so hard. It's a hard question.
That's hard, and I mean, the fact that I literally cannot think of anything, I will tell you this: that I sort of saw my dream two leads in a show. It's a great way to end this. Porgy and Bess, the revival, Audra and Norm.
Oh yes.
I've never seen anything like it. It was the most electric thing I've ever seen. The two of them were so great. There were two moments when the two big songs started. I Loves You, Porgy, and Best You Is My Woman Now. Literally, whoever said each of the first lines of those things, the first line came out of the song, and they were so they were so revving so high and so in sync and so in character that they said the first line and the entire audience en masse burst into tears, both songs.
Mm.
Like you heard him go, like, I was like, wow, oh my God. And then of course some of the freakier sounds were coming from me. So I'm like, was that? Like it was just great. Like en masse, the audience burst into tears. Went, this is so deep right now. So deep. It was extraordinary. And I'm like, I can't imagine anything being cast that well ever again.
Right.
You know, and it's so, and I've known Norm for years because he was in he replaced our John in Miss Saigon here in Toronto, so I've known him for like 20 years. But like still, like him in the middle of all that was like, you are killing me, you're killing me, how dare you? Oh, dare you. It's great.
That's awesome.
That's in lieu of, I cannot think of any show and any people, but that was like two people who could not have been cast more beautifully and have taken it to all the heights you want, with all the glorious sound you want too, sung all operatically gorgeous, but so connected that you're like, how dare you? This is amazing. It was amazing.
Why are you destroying me right now?
Why are you destroying all of us? Literally.
Yeah.
I love you, Porgy. like you totally do love
That?
it. You can feel it. It was that kind of, it was so real. Like this, I feel like I'm watching an intimate, like I shouldn't watch this private moment between two people. It was, but the whole, literally I looked around and men, grown men, straight men, and women weeping like children. The song just, wow. It was like you're at an event. It was crazy, but fantastic.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And a great way to end. So before we close, I want to thank both of you so much for sharing so candidly and just having so much fun with me this morning. This was really wonderful.
Always a good time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who asked questions and who just joined us this morning, especially to Louise. You're our
yes, Louise.
Woohoo!
Louise,
it's always a joy to connect with you, even in this format. So thank you so much for joining us. And please join us next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another Meet the Festival with artists from A Midsummer Night's Dream. You'll join me and some lovely people you can check out on our website, who. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.